and see who starts the season at the top of the heap. Here are the Big Five, the top teams in the country as we begin the season. The Florida Gators come in as the #1 ranked team, followed by North Carolina, Arizona, Kansas, and Syracuse. So Clark, what's your initial impression of our top 5 teams?
Those are some terrific teams, Greg, and the thing I find most fascinating about the top 5 is the number of contrasting styles we see here. These teams couldn't be more different, and I love when we have that kind of diversity at the top of the poll.
The Florida Gators are projected as the favorites here in the early going. These are the defending national champions, and they're getting a lot of respect going into this season.
Usually, last year's champs get the benefit of the doubt in the first poll of the next season. So we'll find out soon enough if their position in the top 5 is based on reputation or is warranted.
North Carolina is in the #2 spot. They're playing in one of the toughest conferences in the nation. How should that affect them, Clark?
They're ranked highly now, but they're going to have to play a lot of tough games in that conference, and if they're not consistently playing at a high level, we could see them slip a bit.
Arizona comes in as #3. They had a pretty solid record last year, finishing with 20 wins.
That total identified them as a team to be reckoned with in college basketball. I won't be surprised to see them reach or surpass that total again this season.
Kansas starts the year as the 4th-ranked team. Their dreams of tournament glory last year were quickly dashed in a first-round loss.
This year they have the potential to do much better than last. Last season they spent a lot of their energy getting to March Madness and were worn out once they got there. I'll bet they handled the journey to the tournament much better this time.
Syracuse is the #5 team. This team may lean on some untested players this season, but that might not be a bad thing, Clark.
A few of the players on this team who didn't get the chance to play quality minutes last season are poised to step right into the spotlight and have breakout years this season. You may not know their names now, but you will soon.
Here's the next group of teams in our preseason top 25. What do you think of this group, Clark?
We've seen plenty of future national champions come out of this group from the middle of the top 25. I'm not willing to say just yet whether that is going to happen again this year, but a few teams certainly have the potential.
The Villanova Wildcats, the #7 team, have stirred up a lot of talk in the offseason. They were unstoppable last season, finishing with 28 wins.
Matching that record is going to be a challenge, but they simply got to forget about the past and get to the business of winning games right here, right now.
The Wisconsin Badgers, the #6 team, have also generated a lot of interest. They're ranked where they are because it's almost impossible to find anything wrong with this team.
Nearly every team has an Achilles heel or a weakness, but this team is so well balanced, they're going to be a tough matchup for anybody.
Okay, Clark, let's take a look at the teams that close out the preseason top 25 poll. How about this list?
I think there were a few teams that were slighted and should probably be in the top 25 ahead of some of these teams, but I'll hold my tongue and talk about the teams that do deserve to be here.
The Ohio State Buckeyes, the #20 team, probably deserve a closer look. Their tournament last year came to an abrupt end with a loss in the second round, Clark.
It can be demoralizing for a team not to get past the first weekend of the tournament, but they've had all summer to forget about that loss and instead build on the positives from last season.
The Maryland Terrapins, the #21 team, are also worth keeping an eye on. There's a lot of talk about what a close-knit group of players this team has.
The idea of team chemistry is often discounted, but if you saw this team play last season, it's more than just a concept to them. I expect that team-first attitude to carry over and be a big part of another successful year.
We've come to the part of the show when we look at the top players in the nation and unveil the list of our preseason All-Americans. There before you are the 5 first-team All-Americans as we begin the season, and what a list it is. What's your take on the first-teamer at the top of the list, Clark?
Smallwood is a tremendous talent, Greg. What I like about him most is his ability to find the soft spot in an opposing defense and exploit it. And he can do it no matter how a defense chooses to play him. I have yet to see a team truly shut him down.
As for our next first-teamer, Tennessee is more than willing to go into battle with him, Clark.
Plavich is really something special, Greg. There's plenty to like about him as a player. He's got that deadly combination of smarts and physical skills that makes him so difficult to defend. A coach's mentality in the body of a world-class athlete. Any questions as to why he's on the list?
Next up is a player that's drawing comparisons to some of the all-time college greats. The Florida Gators are fortunate to have him in their corner.
Platsky is a first-teamer without a doubt. He has such versatility. He can take it and rake it, get down the court with the ball and make plays. He'll be a nearly impossible matchup for their opponents.
Let's move on to a player who's worked very hard to earn his spot on the list. The Florida Gators can depend on a solid effort from him each and every night.
Victoriano is the anchor of his team, and if they're going to the promised land, he's the one that's going to lead them there. We always talk about the guys with great hands. Well, he's got great feet. I love those happy feet. There are few players in the nation with better footwork than him, and that's what allows him to always be in the right position, whether it comes to rebounding or finding space for an open shot.
And finally, we have another superb player to round out the first team. The Ohio State Buckeyes will probably get used to seeing him make the impossible look ordinary.
Britain already has opposing coaches drawing up game plans designed to stop him, but it won't matter what they come up with. Give him too much room and he'll burn you off the dribble. Or play him tight and watch him find a teammate for an easy hoop. One way or the other, he's unstoppable.
Now let's move on to the second team All-Americans. Not such a bad list, huh? These elite players all have the potential to have historic seasons if the right pieces fall into place. The Kansas Jayhawks have built their team around this young man's talent, and I'd say that's a pretty good idea.
Clark was a very hard player to leave off the first team. If I had to pick some frontrunners for the Player of the Year award, he would be right there on the list. I've seen him take over games even when he isn't scoring 30. There are some great scorers among these All-Americans, and he's one of them, but he does much more than score.
The next player on the team is a sensational player in his own right. UCLA is in for a great year if he lives up to his potential.
Hooper is someone you could look at as last season progressed and see his improvement on a weekly basis. I have no doubt he belongs on this All-American team, and I think the sky's the limit for him this season.
We can all look forward to some very exciting highlights from this young man this year. The North Carolina Tar Heels are looking for a lot of production from him, and they probably won't be disappointed.
Gosley has terrific skill in so many facets of the game. It isn't out of the realm of possibility to say that he might even be a little bit underrated. I know it seems far-fetched to say that about a preseason All-American pick, but I'm not sure people realize just what a huge year he's in for, Greg.
Our next All-American may have designs on the first team by the end of the season. Nevada has one of the most reliable go-to guys in the country in him.
Farmer was one of the first players that came to mind when I was thinking of the top 10 players in the nation. The success of his team rests directly on his shoulders, and I believe he has the ability to take them all the way to the title.
And here we have the final player on our list of All-Americans, the Pittsburgh Panthers. Know who their fan favorite is going to be this year.
Minifield is last but not least on the All-American list. His upside is higher than a lot of the other guys here because he has so much raw ability. He could jump to the first team this year if he harnesses all that ability into the complete package.
All right, Clark, thanks very much. You could join us for the